Greetings, mortals, I'm Warevo, and once again, it's time for an overdue visit to another of my childhood friends. Today, I'm going to be talking about Gex Trilogy. Now, I'm not going over the actual games in the trilogy. I'm saving that for when I finally get my new PC up and running. The old piece of junk I'm using now can barely run it as it is. No. I'm talking about the re-release by Square Enix and limited run games. Little bit of backstory. Gex was originally developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Eidos Interactive. But in 2009, both companies were bought out by Square Enix, who then sold them to a holding company called Embracer Group in August of 2002, which could explain why it took so long for this game to come out. The original games were a product of the time. Gex's raunchy jokes and rampant pop culture references would never fly today, but back then they were hilarious. And even to this day, the Gex series still has a huge cult following. With the rise of nostalgia, a remaster of the game seemed like a great idea, and I'll admit, I was really excited when I first heard about it. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't turn out well. Originally, it was planned that many, if not all, versions of all three games would be in Gex Trilogy. Many were expecting to see a full graphical redesign like with Spyro Reignited, but limited run games wanted to keep them as close to the original versions as possible, which is why they used their Carbon engine. So basically we got a Gex version of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Sadly, they would end up cutting a great deal of content from the final product, with only the US versions being available at initial launch, with the PAL versions of Gex 2 and 3 being added later on, and can be readily switched between at will. Though some code for the Japanese versions, called Spintail, was found in the game's source code, the Game Boy versions were most likely cut due to copyright, so all we're left with is the PlayStation versions. Though videos for the N64 exclusive levels can be found in the Gextras menu. One cool thing about Gex Trilogy is the ability to listen to the full soundtrack of each game. Some parts of the soundtrack were taken from the music hosting website KH Insider, as well as Gexpedia. The music sounds really cool, and I found myself putting it on while writing the script for this review. I like how they designed the player after an old Windows Media Player skin. A welcome reference in true Gex fashion. Gex Trilogy also has scans for the manuals for each game, as well as the concept art and the box arts for the US, European, and Japanese versions of the game, which further suggests that the Japanese versions of Gex 1 and 2 were initially planned to be included. Also included were various videos, including the initial release trailers for all three games, all three trailers for Gex Trilogy itself, and a video of the Gex Junior prototype, as well as tons of videos interviewing Gex himself, Dana Gould. The games themselves are very faithful to the originals for the most part, though Gex 2 and 3 kinda lag on my old PC, but don't worry, I'm working on putting together a new one so I can provide better content for you guys in the future. Though I have been informed by the Gex subreddit Discord server that there is a bug that causes your game to overwork your CPU, causing it to continuously run at full speed non-stop. But even with my old PC, it's amazing to see how much of the original games they were able to retain. Limited Run added an easily accessible save feature for all three games. As a result, the password and memory card features for all three games were removed. Also removed were all of the title screen options, so you have to go into the actual pause menus of the games to adjust the volume levels. As a result, while the title screens remain intact, all they really do is just drop you straight into the game. The original version of Deep Cover Gecko also had demos of Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Warzone 2100, and Ikuji, which were also removed. The controls for Gex 2 and 3 are now much more fluid, and both games now have full analog support with the left stick, while still being limited to the original 8 directions, now being fully responsive, and the camera now being controlled by either the right joystick or the L1 and R1 buttons. This is a huge improvement from the original versions, where this looked like this. Even the graphics are cleaner than in the originals. Though it's not as easy to see here, everything is sharper and easier to make out. And it even has a CRT filter if you want to relive the full experience. For whatever reason, the PAL versions of Gex 2 and 3 seem to run a tad smoother on my PC, while Gex 1 works just fine. Though, in my not at all humble opinion, I much prefer Danny John Jules' role as Gex in the PAL version of Deep Cover Gecko. And though Dana Gould's iconic portrayal will always be the best known, I would have loved to have seen John Jules' portrayal attempted in 1 and 2 as well. Gex Trilogy isn't everything fans were expecting it to be, but that's honestly to be expected from a company with the reputation of limited-run games. All things considered, though, while it may not be complete, it's still a great, fun time, and the fluent controls make it a huge step up from the originals, though it still leaves some things to be desired. Overall, I'd say it's definitely worth the price to pick up, though don't expect much more than a polished emulator. I also have to give a huge shout out to the members of the Gex subreddit Discord server who provided me with some very important information for this review. Thank you guys so much. I'm Lorevo, thank you for joining me on this little ride, and God bless.